Welcome into the final episode of the semester here for Plead Your Case. My name is Seth, and I will be your host for today. Today we'll be discussing what is the biggest rivalry in all sports, discussing which one is better. The candidate's going to bring what their stuff, go on from there. Next we have the Pick'em segment. Haley Ryan was the winner of last week against me, but we will continue against a new guest, and she will battle it out for her last one of the year. And to wrap it up, we'll be talking about the top 5 receivers in the NFL right now. You know what to do. Sit back, relax. It's time to plead your case.
Hey there, sports fans. You're watching another episode of Waynesburg University Community Television's only national sports debate show, Plead Your Case. Whether you're a diehard fan or a casual observer, get ready to join us every week as we dive deep into current pressing sports topics. Our panelists dissect every angle, every scenario, and every statistic to influence their fiery takes.
What has he done without Tom Brady?
And spirited arguments.
No, listen, Bowtie. Have you ever played Foursquare? No, you were too old to play Foursquare.
There will be no argument unexplored, and every take will be under review.
After reviewing a play...
Here in the Waynesburg University Communication Department, we believe in heated debates with a touch of friendly competition, which is why we also have a fresh 5 and 5 mini segment that you won't want to miss.
I don't think a pitcher is breaking Cy Young's wins record of 511.
You Google America's team, and what do you get? You get the...
So sit back, relax, and get ready for some serious sports chat. It is time to plead your case.
Welcome back into Plead Your Case, the final one of this semester. We're talking rivalries. Steelers-Ravens, Ohio State-Michigan, Red Sox-Yankees, Lakers-Celtics. The list goes on and on. My name is Seth, and I'll be your host for this segment. Join with me is Joseph Cirillo and Michael McKenzie. Now, guys, rivalries, they're one of the most iconic things in sports. I feel like they kind of make sports even better than what they truly are. So, Mike, we're going to start with you. What makes a rivalry so great in your eyes?
I think the first ingredient on that formula is hatred. There's got to be, and I know that's harsh. I know that is not something you want to promote necessarily, but let's be honest. That's ingredient number one of a rivalry. You got to have two sides that have a big dislike for the other. I mean, if two teams go into a game and they're all buddy, like, hey, best of luck to you, hope it's a good game. It's not a rivalry. That's just a competition.
Sportsmanship.
And we want to promote sportsmanship, but at the same time, rivalries are two teams walk into the same building and they're saying, we're going to beat you down for 60 minutes. We're going to step on your throats, and for the next year or however long until we play again, we are going to let you know what we did on the field or on the court this day. It's hatred, and as much as we don't want to promote hateful messages, that's the number one ingredient of a good rivalry.
Joe?
There might be a rivalry starting right here because he might hate what I'm about to say, because I think the number one ingredient to it is that there's got to be some disturbance in what's going on. Disturbance. I mean, I was just thinking of, there's a disturbance in the force. There's got to be something going on within these teams, within the sports world, as to why it would be hated. Because it's not only just teams. There's individuals that hate each other in the outside world. So it's not just that it's based off teams. It could be just in an era. It could be Tom Brady hating on somebody else, and that's, it's not really that it's the team necessarily, but it could be the individuals, especially in those different sports like tennis, NASCAR, golf, stuff like that. You can't just look on the team's aspect. That's where we tend to look, but we got to look at everything else as well.
Mm-hmm. And there's many sports, like you said, tennis, golf, football, hockey, the list goes on and on. What do you think has the best rivalry? What sports, or what sport, you could say, has the best rivalries in it? Joe?
I mean, you can easily go with, there's NFL, there's NHL, there's the top 4 sports, whatever. One that I don't think people look at a whole lot was the 2000 to 2008 PGA seasons that were going on. Because guess who was beefing on the course? Guess who was beefing? Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson. They were out there. They were battling it out. Every single season, they were going back and forth with their different majors that they had going on. Mickelson with 45 total wins, tied for 8th all time. But then you have Tiger Woods, probably the best to ever play the sport. He is tied for 1st all time in career wins on the tour with 82. But they both are up there in Masters and in their different majors. Woods with 15, Mickelson with 12. Mickelson's gone to the LIV Tour. Woods is staying loyal to the PGA side, and that's becoming more of a dispute that we keep seeing on and on. I personally want to see the match that Capital One's been doing recently. I want to see one between the two of them. Continue the battle, continue it going, see what's going to go on.
Mike?
It's college football. And we saw it this past weekend.
Yeah,
how many fights did we see this past weekend in college football? It was rivalry weekend, so you're already saying that about 90% of the games being played in college football are rivalries. You had Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, South Carolina, Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M renewing a rivalry that hadn't been renewed in 13 years. And I feel like in every single one of those games, somebody got into a fight. Specifically at the end of the game, after it was all said and done, that's the one thing. There are some rivalries where there's respect from both sides, where after the game you do shake hands and you say that was a good game, but hey, we're going to let you know about it for a while. I feel like with every rivalry game in college football, there wasn't a handshake line. There wasn't a good
fists.
job, we'll see you next year. There was fists. There was flags being planted at the middle of the field. There was water bottles being thrown. There was police pepper spraying other people. Pepper spraying people to get the fight broken up.
Yeah.
When you look at the number one ingredient, in my opinion, for rivalries and what college football has produced, not only this past weekend, but consistently in rivalry games, it has to be produced consistently the most rivalries and the best rivalries.
I'm offended you didn't bring up Notre Dame and USC.
Well,
That hurts deep down.
Well, to be fair, you guys didn't plant a flag.
That's true, but we don't need
Plant
to
the
plant
flag.
a flag because we had two pick
right.
sixes
Plant the flag.
right in
All
the
right,
end
all right.
to keep
Plant
them
the
going.
flag.
Put our
buddy.
personal teams aside, gents.
Plant the flag.
The real and the main question for this segment: what is the greatest rivalry in all of sports? You guys, I want you to convince the audience. Bring everything into it. Bring the games, the fighting. Bring it all into it. Mike, we'll start with you.
It's called the game for a reason, man. It's Ohio State and Michigan. It started in Toledo. Michigan and Ohio, the states, but just jockeying for who gets Toledo. And obviously Ohio gets Toledo. But my parents lived in Toledo for a short while at the beginning of their marriage. And they said there has never been a bigger divide of two different fan bases between Ohio State and Michigan. It was split 50-50, and nobody liked each other. They didn't like each other when it came to college football season. There was a massive divide. They fight every single year. And this year it was bigger than most years, but they fight every single year. The last 2 years, Michigan has walked into Columbus and planted their flag at midfield. And this year it took 61 minutes for Ohio State to show fight, which is 1 minute too long as an Ohio State fan, particularly. It was one at the 61st minute they decided to fight. But again, that's besides the point. We're not going to talk about that game in particular because it's too painful to me. But I also think that there are very few rivalries you see where the underdog consistently wins. The last 4 years, Ohio State has been favored. Actually, 3 of the last 4 years, Ohio State has been favored by Vegas to win the game. They've lost all 3 of those. As a 12-point favorite, I believe in 2008 or 9, early in the 2000s, yeah. Ohio State was a 12-point underdog, and they won the game outright. Michigan 3 times as 9 or more point underdogs has won the game outright. There's so many times and so many instances you can say the underdog, the team that was not expected to win, the team that was supposed to get blown out, they went outright. And half the time it occurs on the road. I don't think that there's any rivalry with the sense of maybe competitiveness, the amount of times the underdog wins, and the amount of hatred between these two. I mean, Ohio State, if you play for Ohio State and you call Michigan by name, you are already considered a traitor. You can't wear blue within the training facility. That's how. Is there any other rivalry that forbids the other rival's color from being worn 365 days in the year? Joe? There's not.
I'd say there is, and there's a lot of people that do that, especially in a lot of different areas. Now, these aren't the number ones, but just to kind of back you up on that, Steelers and Ravens, do you wear purple?
Sometimes.
I don't wear purple. Do you wear purple?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't like purple. Well, I don't have a lot of purple.
We don't like it anyway. So that one's one of the more heated ones, but that's not the one. You know what is the game? America's game. That's been going on forever with 2,287 total matchups between each other. They are not that far apart, and they continue to fight it out for not only just, in the past 10 years when it's gotten heated between the Buckeyes and the Wolverines, but this one has gone on for forever. The Yankees and the Red Sox. They've gone at it forever. The Yankees having 1,245 total wins, and the Red Sox kind of on the lower side of it currently with 1,028 total wins. But 2,000 matchups that you've seen against these two teams. There are drunk people that are always throwing people off the stands. They're throwing everything. The Green Monster's always there. That's always planting some bad seeds throughout the game. But then also with them being in the AL East together, it's just they're constantly butting heads. And, of course, being at the top market, Yankees being able to go to the World Series because they spend a lot of money. And then the Red Sox, they're also getting up there. They're spending a lot of money as well. So I think the two of them just continue to butt heads. Not only has it been, in the past 10 years because Ohio State and the Wolverines now have all this media publicity that they're going to be seeing every now and then. This has gone back to the 1920s. This is fresh. This continues to be fresh throughout the entire season of baseball as we continue on.
I got two things I want to say. First, Ohio State and Michigan, the state rivalry goes back to the 1800s. So don't try to sell me this. It's just been in the last 10 years. You think this rivalry just took off in the last 10 years?
I mean, it's taken off a whole lot in the past 10 years.
So we're going to ignore the 1950 snow game, one of the most iconic games in college football history. We're going to ignore the 10-year war from 1969 to 1979.
You know why?
Between Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler. The greatest 10-year stretch of a rivalry in not only in college football history, in American sports history.
I think I opened a can of worms.
Yeah, you open
personal aspects.
Okay, I just and the other thing I want to say is, I like baseball. I'm a big baseball guy, but 2,000 something times, I like rivalries that don't occur 13, 15 times in a single season. I like once or twice.
I can respect that.
That's why I like college basketball rivalries a lot. I like NFL rivalries. I like college football rivalries more so than like MLB rivalries or NBA rivalries. Mm-hmm. Ones that you see, NBA, you see it maybe 5-6 times a year. MLB, now you're seeing it 13 times a year, but it used to be 20-something when you played every divisional opponent once or twice each month. I'm glad the MLB scaled their schedule back a little bit. It has protected that rivalry a little bit more, but 2,000 something times, that's just too many, right. I think. Some of the meanings of those games get demeaned but when you look at Ohio State, Michigan, once every 365 days they get together.
Personal vendetta.
There's a reason that this is called the
final
game.
Thought, Mike, right here.
The game.
The game?
It's called the game. I'm going to leave it on that. It's called the game for a reason.
I think one is an honorable mention, and that I don't think a lot of people have thought about. Simone Biles versus like the world. I mean, her in the Olympics trying to get back onto this team, trying to continue on within the Olympics and trying to find her way to get gold and silver consistently for the USA. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of those things that the world just hates her. So that's a good incredible rivalry to also mention.
Well, good debate, gentlemen. I know both. It's getting pretty heated, all right? We got another segment we got to do. Don't want to kill each other before we get into the final segment. We're going to head over to our NFL Pick'em segment. Haley Ryan is back on the desk. Don't go anywhere.
To predictability, the milkman, the paper boy, evening TV. Did I get delivered here? Somebody tell me, please. This whole world confusing me. Clouds as mean as you've ever seen. Ain't a bird who knows you're true. Then a little voice inside you whispers, don't sell your dreams so soon. Everywhere you look, there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, there's a face of somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look, when you're lost out there and you're all alone, life is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look, everywhere you look.
Welcome back into Plead Your Case. We are here. The championship is here. NFL Pick'em segment. The two best we've seen all semester. Haley Ryan, who has the most wins all year, going against Joseph Cirillo, the guy who has the second most wins all year. Haley back up on the panel after beating me, but we will continue on from there. Lions versus Packers will be our first matchup for today. Lions 11-1, Packers 9-3, both coming off of a win. So, Haley, we'll start with you since you are the reigning champ. Quick summary. This is a mini segment, remember. Got to be quick. Who you got in this one?
I got the Lions. It's really hard to go against the Lions right now. They are one of the most offensive juggernauts, and I picked the Packers last time, but I think it's going to come down to a overtime field goal for the Lions.
Joseph?
Overtime field goal I'm going to have to not agree with, but we're going with the Lions. We're staying in the same place. I mean, they just continue to show they are the best team in football, and they're a competitive team at that. So I'm going to keep them here. They're going to continue to roll. They're going to continue to win here, continue to just have that one loss on the season. They're going to continue it on in this divisional game. It's going to be a tough matchup because both teams are going to want to win, especially looking to see who's going to win the NFC North there. So give me the Lions in Ford Field.
Big NFC North matchup now for the next slate of games. Falcons versus Vikings. Falcons coming off a rough loss to the Chargers. Vikings, a nail biter. Falcons are 6-6. Vikings are 10-2. Joey, who do you got in this one?
I'm taking the Falcons. It's a rough pick to take, and I know people are saying, what is wrong with you? But here's the thing. The Falcons are in need of a win. They're in need of it. And Kirk Cousins is getting some backlash from the fans. And you know what that means? Kirk Cousins' historic numbers, because that's happened in the past. He gets a lot of backlash. He comes out. He slays the day away. So we're going to continue with that. So although the Vikings are also having a hard time, they're trying to look to get in that win category, maybe see if they can even beat out the Lions or the Packers. Give me the Falcons to continue.
Haley?
I got to take the Vikings. I mean, the Falcons are just mediocre at best. They may need a win, but they will not get a win. I think the Vikings are, some of the Vikings wins, they were against teams that they should have won against, but I think that the Falcons are just not impressive, and the Vikings take this one.
All right, going into the next one. Cardinals versus Seahawks, an NFC West matchup. Cardinals were the ones who lost to the Vikings. They're 6-6. Seahawks coming off a comeback win against the Jets. They're 7-5. Haley, who you got in this one?
I got to go with the Seahawks. Now, this is a game that can go either way. They're both pretty average teams right now, but the Cardinals have a talented roster, but they are not playing up to what they should be. So they are, like the Falcons, mediocre at best, and the Seahawks are on a win streak. The Seahawks beat them earlier in the season. They are the upset, but I like the Seahawks here.
Yeah, like we said before, it's a divisional matchup. It's always going to be hard. That's what we've seen with divisional matchups within the NFL. But I'm going to continue just with the Seahawks here. They just came off a great comeback win against the Jets. I think they're going to continue to roll from that energy that they had, bringing it in to this game as well.
All right, going into the next one. The 6-6 Rams, who have been so middle of the road, their record fits them perfectly, going against the juggernaut Buffalo Bills, who are 10-2. Joey, who do you got in this one?
You got to take the Bills. They're the best team in the AFC, and you can challenge me if you want to say that because they are the best team in the AFC right now. I mean, they have so many doubters entering the season, especially with getting rid of Diggs, seeing Gabe Davis exit, and last game against the Niners, it was a snow game. And you know what that brings? A lot of energy to this Buffalo team. Keon Coleman's hopefully going to be back in this lineup after being out against the Niners, but also with that, Josh Allen just got engaged. You know what that means? He's just going to continue to play great. He had a great game against the Niners. He had historic numbers of having a passing, receiving, and rushing touchdown. First one to ever do that. They're going to continue to do that, and they're going to have some fun. They had fun playing in the snow. They're going to continue here.
Yeah, like you said, juggernaut. Bills all the way. Josh Allen, to me is the MVP. And, again, with the mediocre theme, like you said, middle of the road, I just don't think the Rams are going to have an upset against the Bills. I think the Bills they're riding high on this season, and I think they're just going to absolutely run away with this.
All right, our final one, the game of the week. Chiefs versus Chargers. Chiefs, they seem to just be getting really, really lucky lately. They're sitting at 11-1 record. Chargers 8-4, a very solid team. Is this the Chiefs' second loss? Haley, we'll go with you first.
You know what? I wanted so much to pick the Chargers, but I have to go to the Chiefs here because, it's just hard to go against them. They get lucky. They always win these games, the games that could potentially be an upset, but they kind of find a way to eke out like a win on a field goal or something. And the Chargers just confuse me. I can't tell if they're really complete, like they're good, or if they're just kind of still finding their way. And I just think the Chiefs have to take this one.
Sound the alarm, Seth. We're going for the upset here. It's the Chargers. All right. It's LA. Give me LA. The Chiefs are on the verge of another loss. They keep getting away with this. They need a loss. They need another
away
one.
with this.
Okay, they can't keep getting away with this. So the Chargers, they are a tough team, and they are a hard team to beat,
yes,
especially with Harbaugh at the reins. So give me the Chargers,
Whoa.
not the Chiefs.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Give me the Chargers.
So
all the
a couple
way.
differences for this week, but this is the championship series. So whoever wins this week is the champion for this semester. That's going to do it for our NFL Pick'em segment. Don't go anywhere. We're talking top 5 wide receivers in the NFL right now. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back into Plead Your Case. We're sticking with the NFL in this segment. We're talking about the top 5 receivers currently right now. I'm still on the desk with you. Joined with me is Joe Schrillo and Mike McKenzie. Now, guys, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a rundown of the top 5 statistically the receivers in the NFL. We're going to go with yards. So Jamar's at the top with 1,142 and 13 touchdowns. Jay Jetta's 1,038 with 5 touchdowns. McLaurin, 896 with 9 touchdowns. Brock Bowers, the only tight end in the top 15 in receiving yards. He is at 884 with 4 touchdowns. Judy and Lamb are tied at 880. Judy has 3 touchdowns, and CeeDee Lamb has 4. So the first question I want to ask, what are your guys' just top 5 in general? Go through, give me a little bit of synopsis of who you got. We don't have to go statistically. Go into your in-depth of who you think the top 5 are.
No, please, sir.
We're gentlemen now.
I guess
There's no rivalry.
First
on
of
the
all,
table.
no rivalry. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Brock Bowers. We're not going to mention him in this list because he's a tight end, but that dude was a savior to one of my fantasy teams this year. It was the only reason I had a chance to make the playoffs in the last
Well,
week.
according to Netflix.
Shout out to Brock Bowers.
According to Netflix, tight ends are receivers too. You got to remember that. And their receiver show?
He's a tight end. Tight ends and receivers are 2 different positions. That might be for another show. But my top 5, number 1, I got Justin Jefferson. The talent, the production. He brings everything to the table you want in a wide receiver, and he's done it for how many years now? 4 or 5 years. He's done it for a long time. Jamar Chase, I have at number 2. I think that those two are interchangeable, Jefferson and Chase. They both do the exact same thing. They're incredible route runners. They have that spectacular catch ability. They've got the after the catch ability. They've got the production, the talent, everything you want in a wide receiver. I prefer Justin Jefferson. I think he's got a little bit better of a spectacular catch ability, but I'm going with Jamar Chase at number 2, Justin Jefferson at number 1. Number 3, I'm going CeeDee Lamb. His route running and his ability to make things happen after the catch is incredible, so I've got CeeDee Lamb at number 3. At number 4, the man I call the freak of nature, A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown.
I rock with that.
A.J. Brown.
I rock with that a lot.
I think that when you look at his production and what he's able to do, he has become what everybody thought DK Metcalf would be when they were being drafted at Ole Miss. Both of them went to Ole Miss, by the way. And then number 5, I was back and forth on this one. I'm going to go with Amon-Ra St. Brown because of his route running and his football IQ. He's so smart on the football field, and he knows exactly what routes to run when he's got option routes. He's so smart about where to go on the field, whether it's zone coverage, man coverage, what he needs to do to get open for Jared Goff. I just think his football IQ and the talent he has, his route running ability and his yards after the catch ability to go along with that puts him in the top 5 over a few guys I got 3 honorable mentions, which we'll get into.
Yeah, we'll get into later. Joey, who's your top
we got a few similarities, but just first thing, real quick, got to give a shout out to Logan Lepisco. Helped me out with this preparation that we went through. He's the football guru, former producer of this show. I, of course, had to reach out to him. Got to know my facts before I go up between Michael McKenzie. But going with number 1, it's Jamar Chase. He's up there on top for a reason because he's the top receiver in the entire league. We don't care if the Bengals are 4-8.
I
suck.
like it a lot.
Well, I like it a lot, too.
I like it a lot.
I like it a lot, too. But they aren't playing well, but he is playing great. He is currently the leader for the Triple Crown with receptions at 79, tied with CeeDee Lamb. But after that, having 1,142 yards, as you said, 13 total touchdowns. How can you ignore that on this season? Mm-hmm. Then going to number 2, we have Justin Jefferson. So you and I just swapped. I mean, I think that's a really good thing to see.
Top 2.
Yeah, it's the top 2.
They are the top 2.
I think that you can ask any NFL fan, it is 100% the top 2. Having Sam Darnold as your quarterback?
At 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Having Sam Darnold as your quarterback?
I think that's part of the reason I put him in.
And that's a good reason to have that because Sam Darnold, in our minds, going into this season, he was not the quarterback we wanted to see lead this Viking team. Now, granted, it's been going good for them, but when is that going to go downhill? And I think Jefferson's going to keep them on that route, and I think he's been able to keep them on that route. Number 3, Nico Collins. You need to look at this man's stats right now. If he was not injured, he would have been on pace to get 127 yards, 127 receptions, 2,078 yards, and 8 touchdowns within 17 games. Now, granted, we aren't able to see that because of those injuries. But with that, he's still in only 8 games, still top 10 in receiving yards, and he's averaging over 100 yards per game. So you can't ignore that whatsoever, especially in the sophomore slump that we've been seeing from C.J. Stroud. So far, you're going to have to accept that. I know he's your Ohio State glory and above. He's on your Mount Rushmore, I bet.
Slump is a strong word, but go ahead.
I think it's a slump, but Collins continues to do that, especially with a wide receiver room that has been so heavy so far that we've been seeing a lot of good members coming in and out of that. Number 4, Terry McLaurin.
Okay.
He finally has had that. He got that quarterback that he needs, that he's been wanting for forever. And with that, he is still top 3 in those receiving yards. And he has had games with only 10, 17, and 19 yards. He's had 3 games below 20, and he's still up there on the top. So you cannot.
Steelers, right? I don't think he had a catch. Yeah,
he did not do well against the Steelers. But basically.
I remember he had like a 60-yard catch
you're
start
right.
the third quarter.
You're right.
He had close to 100.
Don't ask me.
I remember
he had
that.
close to 100 yards. He played well against.
Don't ask me.
You're 100%
I think that it mainly comes down to seeing McLaurin as basically like DeAndre Hopkins before Deshaun Watson came in. And yes, DeAndre Hopkins was good at football before we saw him with the Chiefs now and whatever he's doing. But then number 5, we did agree on this. Amon-Ra. He's been doing great, especially with this run-heavy offense that the Lions have been running with that Sonic and Knuckles duo that they have going on. Love the nickname, by the way. And then when you keep going with that, I mean, he continues to get 8 consecutive games with a touchdown. You can't ignore that, especially with this offensive team run by the rushing yards. He continues to show that he's one of the top receivers in the league.
I just want to let you know our lovely producer, Logan Arblaster, says that you're both off for the rest of the
Oh, I bet, and I know why.
Because there is no...
Don't worry, he's in honorable mention. He is an honorable mention. He's my number 6.
George Pickens on there. But regardless, we're going to dive into another question. Other than we've been talking about a lot of stats, what do you think a receiver needs to be a top caliber receiver other than looking at his statistics? What do you think that the top 5 receivers in your list, what do you think the key highlights are other than putting up numbers?
To me, it's reliability and consistency. You look at the guys I had in my top 5. They have all done it with subpar quarterback play at times. Jared Goff's start in Detroit was not that great. His first season in Detroit was very average, mid. He's improved in his time at Detroit slowly. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, although Jared Goff's quarterback play it's been here, all over the place, he has been consistent. A.J. Brown, people forget. I know he's got Jalen Hurts right now, who's arguably a top 10 quarterback. People forget A.J. Brown put up 1,200-yard seasons in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill in an offense that was predicated around Derrick Henry. People forget about A.J. Brown, so I think he's great. CeeDee Lamb, at times he's had to deal with Cooper Rush as his quarterback. He's had to deal with Garrett Green as his quarterback. He's done it with all different quarterbacks, and his route running ability allows him to be consistent. And then Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, it just goes without saying that they're reliable and consistent. Those are the 2 things I look at in the top 5. When you get to top 10, then you start, it's pretty much all predicated around production and talent. But in the top 5, you also got to add in that reliability and consistency factor.
Joe.
I don't think consistency is needed at all times. It's
It
definitely a
absolutely
help.
is.
But there are players that can come in from out of injury. Nico Collins being one of them. He had injury so much, and then he comes in and is able to continue to produce for this Texans team. Many times that there have been players that just don't continue to be consistent, but they are up there on the top of the numbers. George Pickens being one of them. He can be consistent, and especially in these past few games that we've had Russell Wilson at the head. But then in those early season games, Pickens was having almost no catches at some points in games, in which we were thinking, where is he? What is he doing? Where's the snap count? Especially in that Cowboys
Probably fighting
game.
somebody down the field.
And that Cowboys game, he had limited snaps because of things going on in-house. But again, that's one of those things that although consistency would be nice to have, it's not a necessity. I think reliability is where it really comes down to, is that you can rely on this guy to come in late, to come in early, at some points without the season, even if he's injured, and he'll consistently do good things for your team at any point throughout the season.
I get your point about coming out of injury and doing things, but let's look at Nico Collins. He had 2 years in the league before C.J. Stroud with his quarterback, and nobody paid any attention to
Same
Nico
with
Collins.
McLaurin.
That's my point. For those
But they're
two guys,
consistently up
for
there.
those two guys, it took good quarterbacks to unlock their full potential. For Justin Jefferson, it took him to unlock Sam Darnold's full potential. For Amon-Ra St. Brown, it took him to get Jared Goff to where he's at right now. For Jalen Hurts, you could argue it took A.J. Brown to get him to where he is right now. That's just my thing. With these guys in the top 5, they've done it with bad and good quarterback play. With those guys like Nico Collins and George Pickens and Terry McLaurin, they are top 10 receivers, but to get to where they're at now, they did need good quarterback play.
And a note from our producer, once again, Logan Arblaster, saying, if GP had Russ Wilson at the beginning of the year, would he be top 5?
No, if he had Russell
No.
Wilson, if he had Russell Wilson 2 years ago, probably.
Okay.
I think
And-
on the season, if we were saying at the beginning of the season, I definitely think so. I think he would be a lot higher on this list. Especially as we've been seeing him in these games, if we saw those games that we've been seeing in these last 3 or 4, seeing those early in the season, I'd agree.
You was mentioning Justin Fields, the backup twos for that, but we're gonna go with the final.
Why'd you
the
look at me
final-
when you said
I
that?
don't know. I'm relaying. I'm the middleman. I'm the messenger. All right. So we're gonna go with our final thoughts. Just a little bit of maybe your honorable mentions, sprinkle in maybe a 6 or 7, and then we'll wrap up for today.
I think the biggest thing is that you also got to look at those that are veterans of the game, and then you got to respect and you got to give them their flowers. I think the one guy is Mike Evans. He's consistent for this Bucs team. I don't think he's in the top for the NFL currently, especially with that injury that happened against Baltimore in that that Monday night game. But he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. He consistently has gotten those 1,000-yard game or seasons, and it's continued on that. So he's definitely going to get a gold jacket at some point, but just give him his flowers for the season. He's keeping this Bucs team alive as they're looking in the hunt for the NFC South.
That's another thing. He's pretty much the definition of reliability and consistency, and I got heat for many years for having him as a top 5 receiver. That injury he had this year knocked him out of it for me. But I still had him as my last honorable mention. Some of my other honorable mentions, I did have Nico Collins in here because the production is undeniable. But it did take a spectacular quarterback to unlock him. Again, I think slump is a strong word that you used earlier, but he is not having as good of a year as he did last year, I will admit. The other guy I had George Pickens on here as well, and we've already talked about George Pickens. The other guy I had on here was Tyreek Hill. He hasn't had the production this year, and I get that he's the fastest man in the world, and he's been in the top, or not in the world, but in the NFL. And I get that he's been in top 5 discussions pretty much since 2018, and he's been up there since then. But the minute he lost Tua, where did he go? He became a ghost.
Same with Waddle.
I agreed, but you could argue that for Tyreek Hill, that he's also that guy like Nico Collins, like George Pickens, like Terry McLaurin, that he needs that elite quarterback play or good quarterback play and a good offensive scheme like he's had in Miami. I think Tua gets a bad rap. I think he's better than most people think, which is why I consider him a good quarterback. Without a good quarterback and a good scheme, at the very least for Tyreek Hill, dude becomes a ghost. Yeah. So that's why I can't put him in the top 5, where he had been for me the previous 6 years.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me on the desk today. Great debates as always. And thank you guys for watching this week's episode of Plead Your Case. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes, our producer, Logan Arblaster, and have a great holiday. We will see you after the break in the next semester. Have a good one.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.